Hey everyone, I'm Samantha, and this is Positively Stressed. I created this podcast because though we can't always change the chaos in our life, we can change how we move through it. You're probably like, oh great, another mental health podcast. Someone that can tell us what to do with our lives, and none of the advice ever work. Because all the time, I used to scroll my phone and listen to all these podcasts or these speakers. And yes, some of them hit really deep and helped me through a lot of my situations. Don't get me wrong. But it was all, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, or to get this outcome. But everybody's different. Everybody's mind is different. Everybody's body is different. And everybody that has those podcasts or those shows, they act like they know everything, like they know the answer for everybody. And that's not the case. I'm here to be raw and unfiltered, opinionated, and have some facts along the way. But you take what you want from what you hear from me. And that's all I can ask for, because guess what? I'm not perfect. I work with, and I say work with, because everybody says they struggle with this or they suffer from this. I work with anxiety, and this is in myself. I have anxiety, I have depression, I have OCD, I have panic. I've been probably diagnosed with a lot of mental health things that they used to mean a lot to me, but they don't anymore, because that is not who I am. And today, in today's world, mental health it's almost like a fad, and it's not. And it's not something to be saddened about. I think that our mental health and what we struggle with are actually our teachers. They point out our weaknesses and what we have to improve on. And so I took that and I was like, you know what? I have this great family. I have this pretty great life, but I'm constantly complaining all the time. So what can I do to make my mind not so negative? I was always a pessimist, but did you know that research shows that pessimistic people have shorter lifespans than optimistic people? And I did not know that. They live healthier, happier, longer lives, and are more successful than their pessimistic partners. So, that should tell you right there, positivity isn't just bullcrap. It's not just spitting out rainbows and sunshines. It's not about thinking, oh, okay, my life's a mess, but everything's great. That's not what it is. But it took me a life-changing moment to really understand what that actually meant. So I'm going to give you a little intro about me, just so you know where this podcast is coming from. Because like I said, I'm far from perfect. After I had a job working in an inpatient facility for mental health for adolescents, adults, I thought I knew everything. I mean, I had the degree, I had the experience, I knew everything. That's what I thought anyway. But I was in my 20s. I was, what I say, young and dumb. You're not young and dumb, but I was young and dumb. And so I thought I knew it all, and I didn't. It's like a magical switch happened when I turned 30, and I was just like, wow, life was not at all what I thought it was. But that wasn't a bad thing, because I was such a pessimistic person that I only saw the bad things. I only saw the bad things in life, even though I had a good family. I have a very supportive family. I had a college education. I worked my butt off for that college education. I don't have anything to be negative about, but somehow I was creating something negative about each day, and then it wasn't taking me anywhere. But I always said, oh, I'm going to become a millionaire. I'm going to become rich. I'm going to become famous. I'm going to become this, or I'm going to be big. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to do this. But I never actually put it into action. All I did was complain about everything and how I couldn't do this because I didn't have enough money, or how I couldn't do this because I didn't have this going for me, or I wasn't tall enough, I wasn't this enough, it was always some excuse that I was making that stopped me from being who I am today. And there was one life event that really turned it around for me. So I became pregnant at 31 years old with my first child. And so I became pregnant with my first child at 31 years old. And I was so excited. This was my first pregnancy. And for some reason, even though I have anxiety and all this other stuff, my anxiety went away during pregnancy. It was a miracle. And I had a healthy pregnancy, healthy baby, heartbeat was great, no gestational diabetes, no nothing. No preeclampsia, none of that stuff. I had a perfectly healthy pregnancy. And so also, right now, my current job is with the PA National Guard. I am the suicide prevention coordinator, so I travel all around the state teaching suicide prevention. And so I had an event that I had to go to in Pittsburgh and in Johnstown. And if you've ever heard of Johnstown, PA, you know that it's like the crack town of PA. I'm sorry if you live there. I'm sorry if you like it there. That's just my honest opinion of Johnstown, PA. And Johnstown, PA became a very memorable spot for me. Not in a good way, but in a great way. You'll see what I mean. So I was pregnant 28 weeks at that point when I was in Johnstown. I brought my partner with me because you just never know. It was a long distance. It was about 4.5, 5 hours away from my family. I didn't want to go alone being pregnant. You know, I'm getting closer to the third trimester. So I brought my partner along with me, and we get to the Johnstown Hotel. Now, we went to Pittsburgh first, and then we drove to Johnstown to do our second event. And so I was there. We got into the hotel. We were going to go have a nice dinner because I just got done working in Pittsburgh. And so we got dressed, and I noticed a whoosh, and I mean a whoosh of something down there in my nether regions, as you can imagine. And so I looked, and it was blood. I mean, just everywhere. So sorry if this is a triggering event. Please don't listen to it if it's triggering to you. It is a little bit graphic, but there was a whoosh of blood, and I started freaking out because, as you know, I'm a very anxious person. I'm a very stressed out person. And I was just like, this is not good. Obviously, any major bleeding when you're pregnant is not a good sign. So me and him were like, okay, we think there's a hospital in the back of the hotel, which is really convenient, that I thought. So I was like, okay, we can walk there. It's literally in the back of the hotel. So I get a whole bunch of towels, kind of shove them in between my legs, and we go down the elevator, and he's already about to pass out. But he's staying strong for me. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to deep breathe. I'm trying to be okay because I'm thinking this hospital is right here. So we get outside, we walk to the hospital. Here it's been closed down, condemned. I don't even know. The doors don't open. He was trying to force the doors open. I don't know why, considering they were closed. No one was even there. At that point, I started really freaking out because more blood and more blood was coming out. I started getting lightheaded, dizzy, sweating. I felt like in and out of consciousness. So I would like sit down and then I would get up and keep walking. He had 911 on the phone. And we were trying to describe where we were. We were trying to get to a street name because we didn't know which street we were on because we were in the back of some alleyway of the hotel. And the ambulance didn't know where we were. They were trying to figure out where we were. I had to eventually sit down, and I sat down in the streets because I couldn't move anymore. I was at the corner of the streets where he could find out where we were. And I was just bleeding out. I had filled about 2 or 3 towels of blood. And I called my mom and I told her I was crying. I was like, I almost had this sense of calm about me, but I was still freaking out at the same time. And I told her, I said, I love you. This is happening, but please tell everyone I love them because I might not make it, and neither will the baby. And so she was calling 911. She was freaking out. Finally, an ambulance came. I was, like I said, in and out of consciousness. And they rushed me to the hospital. And as soon as I got to the hospital, the staff made me walk to a hospital bed. And they were trying to ask questions. They didn't understand the seriousness. They kept asking, are you on drugs, ma'am? Are you on drugs? Are you on drugs? And after knowing what Johnstown is like, apparently that's a lot of what they see in the Johnstown Hospital. And so I was like, I can't answer these questions. I was like, where's my partner? They weren't getting him up with me. I was alone. Finally, a doctor came in and was like, what are you all doing? We need to get her into surgery now. So at that time, I had one or two doctors. I had a doctor that went in this far with no medication to see if they could feel the baby and maybe pull her out. And then there was nurses on each side of my arm trying to get blood. There was somebody cutting clothes or pulling off clothes. And then finally, next thing you know, I was out and I woke up and the doctor said, your baby survived. And you survived, obviously. You woke up. And the first thing people say is that's wonderful. But my reaction when I woke up was depression. I was sad. I was confused. I was lost. I was in this hospital room in Jonestown, PA, hours away from my family, with just my partner and this dark room. And I can be honest with you and say that for the first day, I didn't even want to see her. And that sounds so heartless to say because that's my everything. And if you know me, she is my everything. But I had such postpartum depression already because of the event, and I'm just like, my life couldn't get any worse. Because not only that, I lived in this tiny apartment. I was already depressed about that. I lived in this tiny apartment, 1-bedroom apartment. My partner has 4 kids, so I have 4 bonus children that I absolutely love. Now I have nothing prepared at my house. It's just an apartment. We can barely fit what we have in there. I'm saving up for a house, but I don't have it yet. And I was just like, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for this at this moment. At 28 weeks, I'm not ready for this. I have nothing ready. I don't have my house yet. And my car, the catalytic converter got stolen out of my car. Just like a couple weeks prior, I actually had to take a rental to go to Johnstown and Pittsburgh because my car was on its last leg. And the mechanic kind of effed it up. So that was a whole nother story. It just makes all types of sounds. So I was just thinking about how terrible my life was. I was just sulking in my bed, in my hospital bed. My loved ones, my close relatives came to visit me. And I just cried. And finally, I got some other visitors. And somebody said to me, this is a miracle. You should be happy. And I'm thinking, why should I be happy? I don't have a home to bring her to, that she can have her own room. I don't have any of that. I don't have a good working car. I don't make that much money. And I had her 28 weeks pregnant. I don't know what complications she's going to have. Is she going to survive? Is this going to be permanently damaging? How am I going to go? I was looking at everything so negatively. And I was like, and I told this person, I said, I feel like I'm such a decent person. I feel like I'm a good person. But why do all these bad things keep happening to me? And she said to me, she said to me, why would God give you something more when you can't handle what you already have? And I'm not joking or lying. That is exactly what she said to me. And those words stuck to me because she's right. She's right. I was always so pessimistic. I always called myself a realist. When really I was just being a negative Nancy for no reason. All that time I spent complaining, having excuses, saying I have no time for this or doing all this, doing things that didn't matter in my life. I could have filled that with positive energy, positive thoughts, positive self-talk, and actually work towards the goals that I wanted instead of just talking about it. But I didn't. So from then on, she goes, you have everything to be blessed for. She said, your baby, there was a 10% chance that your baby was going to survive a full placenta abruption. And she did. No complications. She was in the NICU for 3 months. And it was a battle, let me tell you, to get her helicoptered to Harrisburg, to get her closer to us, and even traveling there every day, being a working mom as well. It was hard, but it was in my mind that what she said was so true. She had no complications. She was one of the strongest babies in that NICU. She was healthy. She was big. She actually was bigger than what she was supposed to be at that age. So God blessed me. God blessed me with that. And I was too busy looking at all the negatives that I forgot all the positives. And now let me tell you what that is. Maybe you're thinking, oh, I can point out the positives. Or maybe you're thinking, wow, that's a lot of negative stuff. How do you think of the positives? Whatever your mindset is on that story that I just told you, let me tell you the positives of that story. So I have a small apartment for now 5 kids and me and my partner. Small 1-bedroom apartment. But at least I had a roof over my head. There are many families, many children, many people, many veterans, many disabled, many everybody, many anybody that don't have a roof over their head. That is something to be blessed about. You don't have to be religious to listen to me. You don't have to be religious. That's my thing. I am religious. I'm spiritual. I'm whatever. But that is what kept me going. You don't have to believe any of that. But that was a blessing. You have to learn to be grateful for what you have. Because if you're not, you're missing out. You're missing out on this thing called life. Life is exactly what you want it to be. It's exactly how you think it to be. It's not as hard as everybody says it is. It's not a hard thing to do when you have a different perspective of life. So I had a roof over my head. That's a bonus. It had heating. It had all the utilities. Bonus. I didn't have a great car, but I had a car. When there are some mothers and some kids walking outside in the rain and the snow and all these conditions, the heat, that don't have a car. They don't have a bike. I had a car. It was noisy and it wasn't great, but I had a car. And yeah, she was a placenta abruption, but there was even some positives about that. Okay, now I'm one for jokes, and I am one for humor. I think laughter is the best medicine, so I tend to make some jokes when I'm talking about some of the things. But I didn't have to go through my 3rd trimester. Me in the heat in my 3rd trimester would have been a mess. And I'm sorry, but I'm not the skinniest person, but I didn't have as big a belly as I could have. So I snapped back pretty fast. That's a pretty big positive. My baby survived and she's thriving. She is one of the biggest 1.5-year-olds I've ever met in my life with a huge personality to match that very drastic entrance into life. It gives a good story too. And though it gave me some post-traumatic stress and some trauma that I was going through and more anxieties, I learned that it was something I needed to learn. I needed to learn patience. I needed to learn how to deal with stress in my life because I was terrible at dealing with it. I'm still terrible at dealing with stress, but I'm getting better as every day goes on. So I started looking at the positives of life. And then I started looking at the bigger picture even more. So when you ask somebody that's having a bad day, name 3 things that were good that happened in your day. If they're having a stressful bad day, they're going to tell you they can't name one thing. But then this is what you do. You start going at it by hour. Okay, what happened when you woke up this morning? Well, I woke up out of bed. Bang, you woke up. There's millions of people that didn't get to wake up this morning. There's a million people that their loved ones didn't get to wake up this morning. There's one thing. And then I say, okay, go on. Like, well, I had a smoothie or coffee. Bang. Second thing, you had coffee. You had breakfast. You had something to ingest and have in your system. Not everybody has that. There are kids, there are countries that they're lucky to have a loaf of bread for an entire week. But you woke up and had that choice, whether you had a coffee or something for breakfast, or to do your yoga or a run. That's a blessing. So by the time I hit lunchtime, they had at least 10 things that went well. But when you have this mindset, this pessimistic mindset, it's called catastrophizing. I don't know if you know what that is, but it means when something goes wrong, everything goes wrong. Everything's bad. When you have a bad day, everything's bad. And I was that to a T. One thing bad would happen, and I would start spiraling into being, well, this isn't going well. Well, this isn't going well. And all that did was make me depressed. And then I'd sit at home and do nothing but watch anime or watch something and sulk in my self-pity. But what did that do for me? Nothing. It did nothing for me. So I decided to start looking at things in a positive way. But I'm not changing myself or who I am. I'm still a hot mess. I still run around with my head cut off half the time, like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or, oh my God, I'm freaking out. But I try to keep a smile on my face, because the best thing you can do, lying is terrible. But how about if you have to lie to yourself that life is going well, that things are going well. You start tricking your brain into thinking, okay, this isn't so bad. This is going good. This is going good. So have a gratitude journal. Write down every day what good things happened, even if it's the smallest thing, like I got a Big Mac, or I don't know, I took a crap. I don't know, maybe you're constipated and that was your thing. I don't know. But it could be something little, or it could be something big. It could be anything. But be grateful for something every single day. Find something to be grateful for. Also, help others. Helping others is one of the best medicines besides laughter and smiling, is helping others. I know I still kind of do church dinners, and I help. There's homeless that come, people from the community that come to these dinners at the church. And I had a woman who, she had 3 little girls. And she told me she was homeless. She had a bad relationship, left her and her kids homeless. And they were going from shelter to shelter while she's trying to get her degree in nursing and get a better life for her children. Let me tell you, those children were the best behaved children I've ever seen in my life. They had manners. They said please and thank you. They were grateful, and they ate everything on their plate. And she wasn't depressed. She was motivated. See, that's what your struggle should be, is your motivation to do better, think better, and act better. And that is what she did. She was a great role model for that. And I remember my grandparents don't have a lot of money, but they gave these girls like jars of jam for like Christmas or for one of the meals, and they were so excited. And that made me happy. When you help others, especially less fortunate than you, you really see your perspective of, okay, why am I crying over this dumb crap? Why am I so negative when there's people out there that have it so much worse than me? Yes, everybody's mental health and their chemistry is all different. Don't get me wrong. We all have our stories. We all have our traumas, I'm sure. We all have. But whether you stay in that trauma is up to you. Because there's people that have blown all their limbs off from war. There's people that were born with no limbs. There is this, but guess what? There's people that were born in gangs, have poverty, all this other stuff, but they made something of themselves because they didn't have excuses. And that's the only difference between them and you, is excuses. Excuses will ruin your life. I don't have enough time because I'm a working mom, or I'm a single mom and I have this many kids and I don't have any time to myself. Make time. Because you are important. You're important. So the way you talk to yourself is important. Your self-talk. Did you know that like 85 to 90% of our self-talk is negative? It's always, oh, I could have done better. I could have done this. Or I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not handsome enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not smart enough. It's always something that we're telling ourselves in our head, whether subconsciously or consciously. That's all it is negative self-talk. And you need to start telling yourself that you're a badass. That you can do anything you put your mind to. You can. I'm living proof of it, and there's so many people that are living proof of it, that no matter what life throws at you, you can make something beautiful out of it if you just change the way you think about things. I'm not saying that positive thinking fixes everything, but it gives you that head start into doing something about it. And that's what's important. And so positivity is just, It's not about, like I said earlier, it's not about, oh, my life is chaos. Oh, great. I'm doing great. No, it's okay. I'm struggling right now. What can I do about it? How can I get out of this struggle? Those people that say, oh, I'm too broke. I'm too this. I'm too that. I'm not smart enough. Study. You're broke? Work. Study something. Study something that you're passionate about and go to school for it. Maybe school isn't for you. Then do something about it. Do something that you love and the money will follow. My mom always told me that. And that is what I'm doing. That is why I started this podcast, is because this is what I love doing. I do it for the National Guard, for the military members. I do it. I do it every day and I preach it. I preach positivity. I preach how to change your life, how to reprogram your brain so that way you can have the life that you want. And I teach it and I love it. That's what makes me happy. And guess what? The money isn't great, but I know it will follow because I have hope. And that is something that so many of us lost. We fear too much. And that is where anxiety comes from, is fear. Fear that you're not good enough. Fear that things won't work out. Sometimes you just have to take that leap of faith and do what you love and do what makes you happy because you matter. So stop the excuses and do it. Because all that time you're making these excuses and you're sitting around moping or you're being stressed out, guess what? You're of no good to anybody when you're a mess. You're of no good to anybody. If you're a stressed out mom that's going around hectic and you can't find the time and your kids are not getting the best version of you. If you're stressed out at work and you're constantly thinking about work, your job and your coworkers and your boss are not getting the best of you. Your partner is not getting the best of you. You ever realize that the people that we love the most get the worst part of us? Why is that? Think about it. Why is that? Because those are the ones we're most raw with, and we bring all our trouble back to them. Deal with it. Learn how to deal with your emotions. I'm not saying to exit your emotions and act like they're not there. I would be not a great speaker if I told you to do that. You have to deal with your emotions. Figure out what's making you feel that way. What is making you feel depressed? What is making you feel anxious? Think about the thoughts that are going through your head while you're feeling those feelings. Because I'm telling you, you act how you feel. So you feel angry, you're going to act angry. You feel stressed, you're going to act stressed. And the people that love you get it the most. So figure out why. Journal it down, write it down, speak it out loud, talk to yourself, not in public. I wouldn't recommend that. They might put you in the loony bin for that, but talking to yourself and positive self-talk will get you further than you think. You tell yourself every day that you can do exactly whatever you want to do because you can do it. There's no limits. There's no limits. So just take that for what it's worth. And I hope you tune in because we are going to be talking about everything mental health, relationships, substance abuse, mental health diagnosis, coping skills, stress, everything that bugs us. And I'm even going to have some people on the podcast and on the show that have experienced these things. They're expert matters. I'm going to have them all on the podcast and we're going to talk about everything because guess what? I may talk all this positivity and I live it every single day, but I'm still human and I still get depressed and I still have anxiety and I'm still figuring it out and learning as I'm doing with you. So let's help each other out and get through this thing that we call life, and we're going to make it out. We're going to make it out and we're going to be happy and smiling while do it. So talk to yourself in a nice tone, in a nice voice, and tell yourself that you can do it because you were blessed with another day. So I'm going to end every podcast with a joke because laughter is medicine. So I'm going to tell you my most famous joke that I've said many times. Hopefully you get a good laugh, but it's called the duck joke. So there was these 3 men that died and went to heaven. And they got to the pearly gates and God came to the gates and he said, okay, you can come through the pearly gates and you can have everything you could ever imagine. The only thing is that you can't step on a duck. For 24 hours, you cannot step on a duck. If you cannot step on a duck for 24 hours, you will have everything you can possibly imagine and the most beautiful person as your partner for eternity. So these guys were like, okay, that can't be that hard. So the first guy went up and he tried to sprint through these pile of ducks, and he stepped on a duck. And God goes, okay. There he went. He was matched with the ugliest person he could possibly think of for the rest of eternity. So the second guy comes up and he goes, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go slow. Slow wins the race. So he went slow. He got through about 10 hours. He eventually stepped on a duck. God goes, okay, you couldn't do it. So you're vanished and you're going to be with the ugliest person you can possibly imagine for the rest of eternity. The third guy goes, I got this. I know exactly what I'm going to do. He stood there. He went right past the line and he stood there for 24 hours and did not step on a duck. And God comes, he goes, you did it. You passed my test and you did not step on a duck. You are now granted the rest of eternity with the most beautiful woman you could ever imagine. He snapped his fingers and this beautiful woman appeared and he goes, oh my God, nice to meet you. I'm so happy. I don't even know what I did to deserve this. And she goes, I know what I did. I stepped on a duck. Ha 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 ha. That's where the laughter comes in, but I can't hear your laughter. But so that's my joke. So I want to thank you once again. Please be your biggest fan and not your biggest enemy. Love yourself because I love you. Bye.